Welcome to an overcast Sunday in downtown Bellevue. This is a place I visited many times before. I like coming on the weekends when it's not busy with working people. Lots of interesting architecture to explore. Sometimes there's people hanging out. Sometimes there's family photos going on. But it's a place that's changing. There's so much new construction. It's almost, you can come here once a week and it'll look different every time. So I'm gonna walk around here a little bit, take some photos of buildings I've photographed many times before, share some thoughts along the way. Sorry to interrupt your enjoyment of that amazing walk around downtown Bellevue. Here's what I thought I would do for the rest of the video, and that is to walk you through some of the edits as been requested by a couple folks. So I'm going to walk through the photo edits in Lightroom, and on top of that, I'll overlay some of the videos so you can see contextually what I was doing and what I was working on. So we're going to try this experiment and see how it works. As always, you can let me know at the end of the video. Well, you can let me know right now in the comments below what you think of this idea, see how it works. If you have suggestions and other things, I'd be glad to receive it. But until then, let's hop over to Lightroom and I'm gonna edit some photos and we'll talk about the process of the photo making part of the process as well as in the edit process. So here we go into Lightroom. So I've got about 15 photos that I'll edit that I've selected. I'm not sure if I'm going to edit all of them or all the edits will make it into the video because it might be a little long. All the photos will be posted to Flickr. I will leave a link for that in the description below. So we're going to start with the crow here, looking at some food. It's fun as you're walking around in a city to see all the many variety of things to look at. Obviously, if you're in a city with tall buildings, they get your attention first, but there's often little things closer to the ground that can be pretty impressive. So here's how I'm going to start with the edit. And basically, as I look at this photo, as I look at any photo, what I'm looking at is the overall composition. I look around the edges, see if there's anything that could kind of get in the way of seeing what I want you to see. And in this photo, I see a couple things around the edges. First, on the left-hand side, we've got a little bit of a green bush. On the right-hand side, the intersection of the corner of the building kind of wraps and creates a little bit of a lead you out of the frame moment. So I'm going to start with the crop tool. I'm in here in Lightroom. The crop tool is the letter R, Lightroom Classic. That'll get you the letter R. I'm going to hold down the Shift key to constrain the edit to the existing proportions. And I'm going to crop from the top a little bit, and I'll crop from the bottom to kind of keep things even. So crop out the bush on the right, and then I'm going to readjust to kind of keep the bird on one of the thirds. I've got a little bit of the, what's that called, that bush up here on the left, but I think that'll be okay because of another edit I'm going to make in a minute. So I've got a good arrangement, I think, of the crow here. And by the way, I think I have about 4 or 5 photos of the crow, and I like this one, the gesture he's doing, like he's looking at what's going on down here. He's looking at something he's going to try and eat. So I like this gesture the best of the 4 or 5 photos. Next step will be to take a look at this from a color standpoint and start with the basic panel. So first thing I generally do is turn up contrast. I like contrast. By the way, all of these edits are my edits. You would likely make different edits because you have a different set of priorities, a different visual preference, but here's my edits. By the way, all these photos were taken with the 16 to 80 millimeter f4.0 lens on the Fuji X-T3 body. This photo is at ISO 400 and the focal length is 80 millimeter and the shutter speed is 1/250th of a second. Contrast, I'm going to leave highlights, shadows, and whites alone. I'll probably pull the blacks down just to add a little more contrast. Kind of a standard thing for me with presence section is I turn the texture up to 30. If you didn't know this, the presence section texture clarity dehaze, they're
micro contrast kind of things, and they affect things, the photo differently. Texture is the one you can probably crank up the most and get the least amount of gnarliness. So I'll turn that up. Clarity just a little bit, just to give a little bite to the image. Dehaze, might just turn that up just a teeny bit, knock down some of the reflections in the windows. All right, moving on down to vibrance and saturation. Here's another thing I traditionally do, or generally do on all the photos. I turn the vibrance up to about 30, and then I'll pull the saturation down to about -15. I kind of like that balance of things there. Temperature and tint, I'll go back up there and decide that now. Do I want to warm this up a little bit or cool it down? I might go a little towards the cooler side because it's a cool day. That's my reasoning. So also goes with the dark of the bird. On the tint, do I want to go green or do I want to go more towards the pink? I'll probably just leave it as default and just call it good there. Moving down to tone curve, I'm going to skip that on this photo. It doesn't make a huge difference in what the move I would make. I'll go down to hue, saturation, and luminance, HSL color. What I do on these photos, and I'm going to do this on pretty much all the photos. The following photos will go more quickly because I'm going to show you a fast time-saving way to bring in most of your edits. So the hue, here's what I do. I just nudge the colors. There's not much color in here, so it's probably not going to make much of a difference, but this is for the future photos. Red, orange, yellow, I go to about -15 neighborhood. I'm moving everything kind of towards the red end. The green, I move a little towards aqua, and then the aqua and blue, I move a little towards the teal. So that's my color preference. There's not a lot of logic to it. It's almost a little bit of branding. It's kind of, I use these colors a lot that you see in my background lights, and I try and kind of mimic that a little bit in my photos, and we're going to do more of that when we get down to color grading. So I'm going to start with the shadows, because it's on the left. And I add a hue of 206. That's my kind of brand color. You didn't know you were going to brand your photos, did you? And then a saturation is just a taste. So the hue is the color value, the crayon color you're going to use. And then the saturation is how much of that are you applying, in this case, to the dark tones, the shadows of the image. So there, I'm just eyeballing it. There we go. About, 28. Midtones are the middle tones in the image. So if I want to add a kind of fishbowl look, I could do that. Again, this is for overall vibe. I do kind of like the way adding some orange here adds a little bit of extra presence to the stair. So I'm going to do that. This is just my eyeball on all these. And then the highlights, the brightest tones in the image, do I want to make them a little more pink or a little more, which color do I want to go? I tend to want to do a little, very subtle here on the highlights, a little towards the orange pinks. It's, again, these colors here. So if I turn off color grading, you'll see the difference. In this photo, it's not a lot because there's so many gray tones, but there is a little now of blue and that orange, again, like these lights back here. Your mileage and preference will vary. Last thing I'm going to do, ISO 400. For photos like this, I personally don't feel like I need to add any noise reduction. So I'm going to skip that and head on down to the effects tab and then add a vignette in the corner. So I'm going to darken those corners, not that much, that's too much. And then that's going to help hide that bush that's in the top left that I mentioned. That's still in the photo to give the rule of thirds crop. And there we go. So here's a before, kind of flat from a raw file, and then add some punch to it, a little more city grit, a little more fall vibe, hopefully. There you go. So that's photo number 1 done. Here's what I do when I go to the next photo. The first thing I do, it was the same day, basically same light. It was an overcast day. I'm going to hit the previous button down here. And that's going to apply all those edits from that first photo, including the crop, which I may or may not want. So it gives me a starting point. And I'll do that as I go through each photo. So Now I'm going to go back up to the top and make some specific adjustments for this photo, starting with just quickly undoing that crop. So I hit the R to get me into the crop tool. I'm going to hit reset. I do like this crop, the original crop, so I'm going to leave it alone. Photo settings, ISO 400, 18 millimeters, f4, 1/2000th of a second. So this photo, bright sky, pull down the highlights, pull down the whites, and I'll get some of that sky detail back. The shadows, I'm going to open those up a little bit. That's mostly going to be the building, so I'll brighten that up just a little bit. I'll probably turn contrast up even a little more. I really like this dramatic look. Presence and vibrant saturation, I'm going to leave alone. HSL, going to leave alone. And actually my color grading, I'm going to, well, let's see what I want to do here. If I want to do anything to give just a little more something to those clouds, the white parts of the cloud, just a little character, so they're not just pure white. They've got just a little bit of tan to them. Again, here's what that looks like with that turned off and then turned on. Oh, one thing I might do in the HSL luminance part of that panel. So this is the exposure of the various colors. Let's see what happens if I do the blue. So the building's too dark, although I kind of like this moodiness, but it's not. So I'm going to darken it just a little bit. So what I'm thinking to do with the graduated filter is just add, shift the white balance in the part of the photo affected by the graduated filter, which is the sky. And if I do that, what happens is it starts messing with exposure a little bit. It gets a little funky. So that's probably not the best idea. Yeah, let me think a minute. I might just delete that. Sometimes you have to experiment and try something to see if you can get the effect you want. And it's all a matter of balancing how much time you want to invest in a photo. You know, if it's a portfolio worthy photo, if it's one you want to make a huge print of, then sure, it's worth spending a half an hour just to get it just so. But these are social media photos. I like them a lot, but I don't need to stress over every last little detail and every last little adjustment. So I'll spend 2 to 5 minutes on a photo, but I probably won't spend half an hour on a photo for social media that's going to be this big on people's phones. Your mileage and preference may vary. So I'm feeling pretty good about this photo. We'll go to the next one. And I'm just going to hit the previous button again. So that's going to apply all the edits from that other photo. This was taken right at the same amount of time, same time of day, excuse me. In this photo, we're looking a little dark now. So go back to the basic panel and I'll probably just brighten that up with some exposure and see how that does. Kind of like that. All sorts of repetition here, all sorts of patterns. Lots of mood. It's almost abstract, which I'm a big fan of. Focal length here is about 40 millimeters, 42. Shutter speed still at 1/2000. ISO at 400. Excuse me. Next photo. Looking straight up at this part of the building, this little segment of the building. Again, we've still got that overcast sky, so I'm going to do previous to get me started. Decent detail in the sky. I'm okay with that. If you want to bring out more detail in the sky, you can hit that dehaze, and that'll help that. Actually, I'm going to go back to this photo and do that. I forgot about dehaze. So we'll add a little dehaze here, which tends to make things a little darker. So I'm going to add throw back a little exposure here. As soon as Lightroom catches up with me. There we go. Oops, too much. All an eyeball thing. There you go. Okay, back to the photo we're currently working on. And feeling pretty good about that. Do we need to crop anything? Let's turn on the crop tool and see what we feel like. I'm really close to the rule of third line with that center point. I went asymmetrical with this alignment, so I might as well go ahead and embrace that. Let's try starting from the top, see how that feels. Put that on a rule of third line, and I like that. a symmetrical view of a similar thing with the clouds reflected here. So again, I'm going to start with the previous button. It did add the crop, so I'm going to go quickly into the crop tool and just hit reset on that. I was intentional as I was framing up this photo to make sure to get symmetry, even up in those, you can see those top 3 window lines. They're pretty balanced left and right. Hey, me. It's good to be intentional. This has got a little too much dehaze, probably. We're getting into the almost a posterization look on the blue. So I'm going to pull the dehaze down a little bit. This is a kind of a quieter photo. I want it to be just a little more dreamy. If you go negative with dehaze, you can get to kind of really dreamy. We'll go maybe like something I rarely do, maybe minus 10 or 12. Yeah. I've taken this photo a ton of times in the kind of this V of the building looking straight up. Depending on what the clouds are doing, I've had it with a pure overcast day, so it looks like just a white sky. I've had it with clouds looking like they're coming out of the top V there. So a little bit of everything. Let's hit previous to get started. 30 millimeters here, 1/1000th of a second, ISO 400. This I'm going to, remember in that previous photo, we turned down the dehaze, so I'm going to turn it back up, get some of that drama back, both in the sky and in the reflections on the building. So this photo, I noticed these 3 X's, and they're all different. They're all different shapes, have different colors applied to them, different materials they're made out of. And what I really like that. It's hard to get these into one photo in an interesting way. So what I'm going to do is quickly apply the previous button just to get me in the ballpark. And then I'm going to go work on, I took individual photos of each of the X's. So we're going to do previous here and see how we do. Ooh, I like that grittiness. Let's check the crop. I'm going to center align that, the middle of the X. I kind of like the dark and moody here. There's a lot going on. I like that the X's, because this one was on the ground floor, so this will probably be the only one where I can get most of the arms of the X's into the corners of my crop. Let's see. We don't have a sky in this, so I'm going to bring the highlights and whites up a little bit, but still keep the moodiness is the idea. So go to the next one. So this is the middle floor X of the ones I was looking at. We're going to do the previous button to get us started. Dun, dun, dun. There we go. And then I'm going to do a little more cropping. I'm going to straighten this just a little bit and at least center align the X part. I'm going to keep the top and bottom here. That'll work. I like the tones. I like the contrast and everything. So we'll go to the third one, which is on the top floor. So it's going to have the most kind of parallax, tilty action going on. And start with previous. Get us mostly straightened. A little too blue here, so I'm going to back off the temperature a little towards warmth, towards the higher temperatures. Let's see, same thing here probably a little bit. Yeah. Again, just kind of an eyeball thing. Come back to this photo, and I'll do this a lot. This is my process, especially if you have a sequence of photos. What works on one photo may work pretty close on the other, or you may find you make an adjustment to the third photo, and then you want to go back and do it on the second and the first to get you into the same ballpark. All right, let's crop this guy. What do we got? I'm going to bring it in a little bit more just to kind of keep it so that all 3 are about similar look. Let's see how we're doing on straightness. Are we pretty straight? If you click and hold the crop tool, you'll get the smaller grid, and you can judge alignment. So you have to, in this photo, I'm going to have to decide, do I want vertical alignment or the horizontal line? You can see the horizontal line is not straight, and again, that's the angle, the parallax, and I wasn't straight to it. So I'll go for the horizontal straight, maybe and just compromise. Actually, I'm going to go for the horizontal straight, that line going across the bottom, because it's the most noticeable of being crooked. And there we go. So we've got 1, 2, 3 X's. Neat little sequence. All right, moving on. In this one, I liked the new building construction. Well, actually, it's an old building renovation happening right next to this already completed construction. So I liked the different shapes and textures and how they kind of look like they're merging. This is at about 50 millimeters, ISO 400, f4, and then 1/1000th of a second. So I hit the previous button, got me in the ballpark. I'm going to maybe just a little less blue here. And I'm just checking to make sure that I didn't get lazy and just clicked it. Oh, looks good. And then move on. I've been known to do that. Don't tell anybody. Yeah, I'm going to undo that. We'll keep the blue bright. Go back to hue. All right, let's move on to the next photo. Watch for details as you're walking around in a city or anywhere, actually. But I like this photo. Here's because it's just a happy birthday that's backwards to my viewpoint. But it reminds me that what we see is a matter of perspective. So even though there's not a lot of super eye-catching stuff in here, I like the story that it tells. So that's what I'm going to work with. Start with the previous button. You knew that. And let's check the crop. See how we're doing. Get rid of a little bit of the building on that side. So effectively, I'm zooming in a little bit more. I'll pull up just a little bit from the bottom so that I don't have that little bit of line on the lower left. Then I got to check the right to make sure I didn't introduce any new problems in the top left. It looks good. There we go. Kind of blue, which I'm okay with. Let's warm it up just a little bit. Ooh, I like that. Let's warm it a little more. There we go. Sometimes you think you don't want to do something and you end up liking it better. Just goes to show you, don't be settled for clicking on the previous button and then not trying a couple things for the specific photo you're working on. All right, I've got a couple more photos here. Let's go to this one, another statement photo. As I was looking around, another thing I try and remember to do when I'm walking around anywhere is to turn around, to look behind and see what the perspective looks like from the same spot, but 180 degrees different. And as I did that, I noticed, and this was on a Sunday, so they're working hard to get these buildings done in downtown Bellevue. This crane was moving 3 porta potties to a new location. And again, a little bit of maybe of a commentary photo. So let's edit. Start with the previous. I like what I was going to crop out the emptiness of the sky up in the top left. What else do we need to do? I'm going to darken this a little bit back to, let's see what 0 does of exposure. By the way, if you ever want to quickly reset any of these sliders back to their original value, there's 2 quick ways to do it. Double click the word, like here would be exposure, or double click the control handle and that'll move it back to 0. I like the darker tones here. I like that the drama it creates, the sense of openness in the middle there that we then have. Let's check the crop and see how we're doing. I want to go back out a little bit. I don't want the top part, but I do want, let's see. Then we got to decide, do we want to center up the cans, so to speak. So yeah, I'm going to center that, look right at it, can't look away. Let's see what else we want to do. I'm going to bring the highlights and whites back to 0, see what that does. Maybe brighten just a little bit more. When I'm whispering, that means when I'm talking softer, it means I'm moving just a little bit. Isn't that funny? Let's try this in black and white just for grins. Let's see what it looks like without color grading. I kind of like that. So we're going to turn off the color. I have it disabled by turning off the preview. but I'm going to just undo the color grading at each of the color values. And oftentimes when you remove the color, that gives you a little more freedom to really embrace the shadows, you know, to go dark on the darks, go brighter on the brights, turn up contrast. Just gives you a little more room without getting into some of those funky color changes that often happen when you do this. All right, last photo. I just like the intersection of all these lines and shapes and stuff. And I'm going to start with the previous and what's going to happen. The previous photo was black and white, and I'm okay with that. I'm going to click previous because I was thinking on this photo that black and white might be the way to go with this photo as well. That photo had some crop on it, so I'm going to undo that real quick. Hit the reset. Looking around the corners to see if any other cropping is needed. I'm going to bring down from the top to right about here to get rid of that little pattern change at the top that gets a little distracting. And then I want to slide it over this way so I get that diagonal in the bottom right corner intersecting. Top left, bottom left, nothing to concern about or really add to the photo. Hit enter and commit that crop. Anything else? I kind of like, nope, I know what I need to do. It's a little crooked. The middle stuff is a little off center. Yeah, this is one of those photos that's, you're not going to go for optically straight. You're going to go for perceptually straight. I just made that up, but I'm going to still do it. There you go. All right. So anything else I want to do here? Let's turn that up, pull it down, just see what happens. Don't want to go for, does it feel like you're kind of at night, kind of a film noir thing? I like that. I kind of like that. A little darker. Here's where it started. Here's where it ends. What do we got for settings? 30 millimeters, f4, 1/1000th, ISO 400. So there we go. Some photos taken during a walk through downtown Bellevue on a Sunday in September. And my edits on those photos as well. I hope you enjoyed this process. Let me know what you think. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button. That helps train the YouTube algorithm about videos you find interesting and helpful, and you'll get to see more of that. If you really like this video or the idea we're going to continue with, please subscribe to the channel. That helps, again, see more of what we're doing. You can follow the adventures as we proceed later on. So until we meet again in the next video, have fun creating photos, stay safe, stay well, and I will say bye for now.